I've now played Return to Moria for well over 75 hours. I beat the campaign, and I've now just begun achievement hunting. I became obsessed with this game. When I wasn't playing it, I was thinking about playing it, thinking of what I would craft next, what ores I needed next, trying to find, the orc war chief in the area, trying to avoid those stupid, annoying, poisonous mushrooms. I absolutely love this game, and by far it's my most played game on PC. And I know saying that I played a game for like 75 plus hours isn't a lot to some people, but I can get bored of games very quickly. If I'm not into a game like relatively quickly, I will drop it pretty fast. My Steam library is filled with games with under 5 hours of playtime. It's really common for me. So when I say I played this for more than 75 hours, coming from me, that is extremely high praise. And with the new update that they just released, I'm probably going to be putting at least another 20 plus hours into this because I'm still obsessed with playing it. Now, I was a solo player. I played this entire game alone on this recent playthrough, and I had to start it completely fresh from the last video that I made on this game a couple months ago. But, I didn't really mind, and it was probably for the best to give me just a whole new appreciation for the game to start just fresh from the beginning. But, let's get into it step by step, stone by stone. So the story, it has a good hook. I love that this is in the 4th age of Middle-earth and we are taking back Moria, famously from the Fellowship of the Ring. And, you just fall into the mines and now it's your objective to simply find a way out. You progress through the mines, the story does expand a little bit, but main thing is you're trying to get out of Moria. And, the game's story isn't super deep, doesn't have a ton of high quality cutscenes, but the cutscenes that are there are really good in my opinion. But even though, the story is not the main focus, I will say that the lore in this game is fantastic. Now, I'm no Tolkien expert, but you can tell that great thought and effort was put into make this game just very authentic to Tolkien's world of Middle-earth. Much more authentic than some recent television shows. Now, for us more casuals that have only read the books or only seen the movies, and I did just get a copy of the Silmarillion, so wish me luck with reading that, you will find, remnants of the Fellowship, where they passed through Moria, and wizard marks from Gandalf. And it's really cool because you can actually find a bunch of remnants from, the Fellowship. Balin's tomb is here, and you can even find Gandalf's hat and a bunch of other neat little things and, other lore, like when Gandalf was going through Moria years before he went with the Fellowship. But, like I said, even though the story I feel like does have a good hook, it's not going to win any awards, and I don't think it's, needed to be this, grand epic story. It's a survival crafting game with a good setup that kept me engaged, and I did love, the cutscene at the very end too. I felt like it was really great stuff. Made me feel like that whole journey I went on, for 70 plus hours to get to the end of the game was definitely worth it. Gameplay. Now, arguably the most important part of any game is the gameplay, and to start off with the combat. It was tweaked a bit in the recent update, and it definitely feels better, definitely for sure. Now, originally the combat could get difficult quickly if you got surrounded, and especially in the late game, the orcs would get very difficult. I found the best strategy was to just find a way to get them all funneled in a line and block, attack, block, attack. It took a while, but honestly that was the only way to get through some of these encounters alone. And, the mining. Personally, as someone that doesn't play any of these mining survival games, I loved it. I thought it felt so satisfying to mine the different areas and actually enjoy the hunt and the search for a specific ore so I could craft better gear, and I just really loved that gameplay loop. Like my search for resin, I needed it to get better weapons when I was in a little around the Dwarndalf part, and I could not find any resin after digging in the lower deeps and fighting at Hidden Path, Boom, or Camp Cave Troll with resin covered in dark shadow. Good times. But, it kept me on my toes for sure, and before the update, you were stuck with, whatever the default difficulty was. You couldn't put it on easy, so, I feel such a great sense of satisfaction from beating bosses and trolls, and, later in the game you deal with drakes, which are pretty difficult for a while, with, I think, the most difficult aspect being when there was just a ton of the difficult enemies coming at you at once. Like, the goblins are easy, but orc and urukai were more difficult. Urukai definitely, but there was one time, a bunch of urukai and a cave troll, same time. Good times. It was kind of funny though, because eventually the troll started attacking the urukai, and I was like, thank God. And the crafting is fun, crafting different items, upgrading your weapons. Well, you're not upgrading weapons, you're crafting all new ones that are just better versions. That's all great, and you can also create pretty intricate bases. I didn't really start messing with that till the late game, but it is actually really fun to create your own base from the bottom up. I didn't do it during the main campaign because I was so paranoid about using up resources that I would need to, rebuild a statue or something like that. Like, when I was playing the campaign, pretty much stuck to the predetermined bases that the game will kind of let you know, like, oh, look, it's so-and-so's base. And you just sort of take it over for yourself, and there's always a map stone in there, so it's pretty obvious. I started to make a few of my own to make travel around faster by building map stones. And an aspect of the game I didn't think I would like as much as I did was the cooking. Finding new recipes and, like, building, like, ovens, stoves, different things to make new recipes, so that way you can take, like, food with you, which definitely, later in the game, is an absolute must to do. You don't want to die super far away from your camp, and I died a couple of times during, like, boss fights. And the mad dash to get my gear back before being killed again was intense, because you don't want to lose all your, like, gear and stuff that you worked really hard for. And one thing that wasn't a negative per se, but maybe not a positive, was the amount of item management. I had two main bases that I decided would be the home of all of my gear, forges, furnaces, etc. And it was a little annoying when I would go out to craft something, didn't have it, and it was at my other base, so I would need to go all the way back to my other base to get the item that I needed. And this can be drastically reduced if you use the black crystals to make a map stone. But for the longest time, I would not use them because I was under the impression that I would need the black crystals later, and looking back now, I was wrong. I now probably have close to 60 black crystals in my inventory, just chilling there. I don't even think I can use them for much outside of making more map stones. So my advice to you, use the black crystals if you want to. Like, later in the game for sure. Maybe not at the beginning of the game because they are a lot harder to come by. But I do think when I go and do a fresh playthrough, I'm going to definitely make use of all of these mechanics and really take my time, kind of more so than I did in this current playthrough, which is crazy to think considering it was like a 50, 60 plus hour playthrough. I know I said 70, but that's kind of a combination of my original playthroughs that I kind of talked about in my video from a couple of months ago. But since having finished the campaign now, I know that most resources are pretty plentiful, and if they're not at the section that you are, I guarantee the next section you go to, they will be much more plentiful. Like Sunstone, I was convinced Sunstone wasn't in my game, and now I find a ton of Sunstones. Except resin. Resin, for the life of me, I've only ever found one deposit of resin. I've explored the whole map, at least multiple times going back and forth. I've only ever found one thing of resin. So, I do like the graphics in this game and the art style. I always enjoy new interpretations of Middle Earth that don't rely on the Peter Jackson movies. And don't get me wrong, love those movies, love his interpretation of the work. I'm just saying that it's really cool to see new interpretations of this. Now, when I first got the game, the performance was pretty unplayable. I had so much lag and FPS issues, and it drove me crazy. And like I mentioned in my previous Moria video, I eventually just moved to playing the game solely on Steam Deck because it shockingly ran much better on there. But now, after the update, my game performs 10 times better. But, that might have been a me issue. I did recently have to factory reset my computer, but everything runs so much better right now. But talking about the new update, it just dropped a few days ago as I'm making this with a lot of neat little changes. Most notable would be sort of a tweak to combat. It does feel much better. They added kind of new animations, and when you add runes to your weapon, like a fire sword actually kind of glows with fire, for example. And when you play alone or solo, you can pause the game. Thank God, that was extremely annoying that I couldn't pause the game I was playing alone and offline. You can adjust the difficulty to your liking, and I believe they also adjusted encounters depending on your group size. So if you're playing alone, you're going to deal with less orcs than if you're playing with 4 or 5 people. And I definitely noticed a bit of a reduced orc presence playing alone compared to before the update, and I don't know how I feel about it. Because a couple of months ago, I probably would have been very happy to see that they adjusted that, but after playing all this time and finishing a good 95% of the campaign before the update, I think I kind of liked the extra challenge when I would go to the orc bases with the war chiefs that all of those orcs kind of gave me. It made the whole process much more rewarding. But they did also add a hard difficulty, so maybe doing that will alleviate my concerns of the game being easier. But 2 issues that I have though were that the lighting seems sort of off now. It's way, way, way too dark. My base here is very well lit normally, but it's super dark sometimes. But I like the atmosphere of the dark caves, and I think it makes sense for being in the mines of Moria. But I feel like there should be a bit more light being given off by these torches and everything. And they also added Sandbox Mode, and this takes the procedural generation that the game already has to an extent and just sort of goes crazy with it, where the whole map is pretty much procedurally generated. It takes all the story elements out of the whole game, and you just go, survive, craft, do your thing, and I'm really glad it's there, and I've played it a bit, I like it, I'll probably go back to it. And the elven halls that I saw there were very cool, and so far my favorite aspect to it, but I do kind of miss having a general goal to work towards outside of upgrading your gear and everything. But I did notice they also added some new music tracks, and they sound beautiful. I really do love the music tracks that play now, and I definitely did not notice those before, because the game previously was very subdued with its music, and now the music does kick in more often, and it's really great. And I'm sure that I am missing something to talk about here, but I just really had to make another video about this game because it's my current obsession and I can't put it down, and I feel like more of an expert in this game now than I did when I made that video a couple months ago. And heck, according to the achievements on Epic, and that's another thing really quick, I got an Epic Games account just for this game. It's the only thing I've ever played on Epic. I never had an Epic account before, and thank God this game is coming to Steam later on, but I don't know, felt the need to say that. But anyway, I am in the 4% of players that have crafted all of the mithril armor, so that makes me feel like I am at least in the top 4% of players when it comes to this game. There is one thing though I would really like to have fixed in an update, and that relates to the endgame with the Durin lamps. And you use the Durin lamps to pretty much place them next to the little pockets of shadow that are coming out of the ground. And when you do that, the shadow is only gone temporarily. It will come back. I was surprised to run past one that I built just to see that the shadow was back. Maybe it's a bug, but I don't know. I would really prefer that if I did the whole song and dance of building a Durin's lamp, singing to it, that the shadow would be gone for good, because that I feel like it defeats the purpose of doing it if the shadow just comes back. But, you know, that's kind of all from me with this game, for now anyway. What is your opinion on the Mines of Moria? And I don't know about you, I am still patiently waiting to hear news about the new Shire game. Like, come on guys, your Instagram said trailer coming soon. No pressure, but I really want to see what this game looks like. Watch the trailer will drop before I finish making this video. Alright, but that's it guys. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.